Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, and on today's video we're going to continue the stripping of the GL1000 Goldwing from 1976 back to the bare frame. In the last video, which was just a very simple video where I just did a time lapse of stripping off most of the bits and pieces, which are just simple mechanical pieces, so nothing really interesting to watch, but I do. Some people would just want to see the process. So we're down to basically rear wheel, shocks, the petrol tank, which you can only get out once you've taken the rear wheel off and this piece of plastic and the mudguard etc. off, I understand. We've also got the wiring loom still in place, which obviously needs to come off. Front wheel, forks, and of course the thing about this bike is it has got, oh yeah, all needs to come off. It has got a shaft drive, so we've got to look at how we get that out as well. I think it's a question of undoing these bolts here, 3 bolts, and then taking this assembly, the whole wheel off, and leaving the shaft behind, because the shaft for the shaft drive runs through this tube, and this tube is connected to our universal joint at the end, and that all forms part of the swinging arm. So that will all come out when we take the swinging arm out. So that's what we've got left to do. So I'll set the camera up and we'll crack on with a few bits. Okay, we'll start with the rear wheel. So that's going to be these 3 nuts here. Okay, bit of persuasion, that one's come undone. Okay. That's it, they're loose now. Okay. Looks like there's a grease nipple on there, but it's all been painted over. We'll clear that. So when this gets shot blasted, well, I suppose I better try and take the grease nipple out first before it goes for shot blast, and I have to clean that off and try and get that out. It'd be important to put a new one in there so we can grease this up and it's all back and sorted. Right, so that's separated the swing arm effectively from the hub at the back. When I got the bike, this rear shock was literally like that. There was no bolt in there at all, so I'm going to leave that like that for now. I'm thinking normally what you do is to undo these 3 bolts, and that there would then perhaps down the shock. I don't know whether what you're supposed to do is probably take this off and leave the other side on at the minute. So if we go around the other side, we can see we've got our brake caliper, which, and to stop that rotating, is a bolt that comes through here into the caliper, and then we've got our castellated nut on the back for our axle, which holds this arm, which goes to the caliper, and then I'm assuming that there's an axle that goes all the way through here, through the other side. So particularly as there's a hole in there, I'm thinking as I undo that castellated nut, this might this might start turning, so I have to put something in there to hold it. But that's how we go, see how we get on. Okay, so we're going to go with undoing the bolt that stops the caliper rotating for a start, and then we'll go for the castellated nut. No Okay, that's that out. Yeah, my caliper is now free to rotate. I can go in the box of bits to be resynced. And we'll go for our castellated nut. Okay, that was extremely loose. Okay, so this is just an axle that goes all the way through, so I'm now going to pull that out and it should allow the caliper to come free. Oh, there we go. Which it did. Yeah, so we can get that out of the way for a minute. I'm going to just pull this axle all the way out and just hope for the best, if I'm perfectly honest. So this may or may not come away with the hub on the other side, but let's see how we go. Oh, okay. Places that could have fallen down. Hindsight would have been easy to take that off first. Okay. Wow, that is a heavy old assembly. There's nothing lightweight about anything on this bike, that's for sure. Right, so I'm guessing that space will come out. Yep. And then if I turn the wheel round so you can see. So this has come out complete with this assembly, hub assembly, whatever you want to call it, as a complete unit. I think perhaps what you would normally do is leave this bolted up, and so that stays on the bike, and then you sort of move the wheel away from this assembly, and the wheel will come off separately. But I'd already undone these, and we're taking the whole thing apart anyway, so just perhaps need to remember that for reassembly. Obviously this is all going to have to be checked out and looked at, make sure it's all okay. On the face of it, just by doing this, it seems to rotate nice and smoothly, but I'm going to need to check all the splines and all the rest of it on here. Anyway, so I don't know whether this just pulls off now. I think it probably does. Let's give it a go. Oh, it's heavy. Yeah, there we go. So that's pulled that away. This bike is meant to have been, well, not been rebuilt, but looking at that, I don't think any of that's been cleaned out or re-greased at any point in time, to be honest. So again, that'll all come apart, be sorted out. Okay, so we've got a wheel bearing in there. We've got the splines in there where the matching splines on the hub go into. And obviously that all comes out with those bolts there, so we'll look at this in more detail in another video. One interesting aspect to this particular back wheel is, I understand the chap I bought it from, he said he'd imported this from America because the wheel that came with the bike wasn't in very good condition. I've got several of the wheels, I just haven't really checked them out as yet, but these wheels, this wheel came with a load of light bulbs, presumably little 12-volt bulbs. There's one there, one there, one there, one there, one there, and they're basically little light bulb holders with bulbs in which have been painted orange at some point, and with a single wire coming out of them and going, I don't know where, I haven't traced it, but presumably the wheels lit up. So as the bike was going along, the wheels had an orange glow or lights going around in them. Must be an American thing, I guess. I don't know. If you know, let me know in the comments. Next to come off is the rear master brake cylinder, held on with two 12mm bolts. That should come away. Yep. Okay, that's the caliper off. So the caliper, the rear master cylinder. So I'll just drain that into there. Next up is shock absorbers. These shock absorbers going straight in the bin. Looking at the state of them. To be fair, they're decent, or were decent Hagon shock absorbers, but they're definitely past their best right now. So I'll keep them for reference, so I know what I need to buy. But yeah, not going to be reusing these. Sure. Okay. Gotta be honest, I was expecting that to be a little bit more free moving than that. That's quite stiff, but we'll take it apart and we'll have a look. In fact, that's the next thing to come off. Okay, so the swinging arm appears to be held in place with a lock nut, and then in the centre of that we've got a pivot bolt, and it's the same on the other side. So I'm just taking a look at the climber manual, and that one says to loosen the lock nuts on both sides and then unscrew the pivot bolts one turn at a time, counting the number of turns, because presumably when you put it back together you're meant to do the same number of turns. This swinging arm seems quite stiff to me, so I'm wondering whether they've been done up too tight. Although this one looks, there's a lot more thread shown on this one. There is on the one on the other side, but anyway, let's undo the lock nuts for a start, and then we'll take it from there. Just put that around the other side. Okay, so that's one lock nut off. It says just to loosen them, but as we disassemble, we'll take those right off. That's nice and rusty. So I suspect what we're doing here is these pivot bolts determine, you screw those in. I'm sure there'll be a torque setting on them or something. Maybe you just do them up until the swing arm starts to get tight and then back them off. We'll worry about that when we come to put it back together, but let's see if we can get these to turn how many turns. And I think when these come out, the swing arm should be free to come off. So we'll call that straight down. So that's half, one and a half, two and a half. What's happening on the other side? Nothing. 3 and a half, 4 and a half, 5 and a half, 6 and a half, 7. Getting bored now. What was that? 7. Let's leave that one at 7. I'll do the one on the other side. See how we go with that one. 1 and a half, 2, 3 and a half, 4 and a half, 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5, 7. Okay, so that's 7 on both sides so far. Well, definitely freed it off, I suspect. Based on that, they were probably too tight. So that's 7 on each side. 8, 9, 10. 8, 9, 10. I think I'm wasting my time with this because I think they've just been done up tight, whereas they shouldn't have been. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to undo these three, hopefully come out. What could possibly go wrong? It's a very fine thread for such a large diameter bolt, has to be said. Come in. Okay, that is now appears to be loose. Let's keep going with that. Right, okay. That's that side. Same on the other side. Keep going. From underneath. What's in there? Okay, so yeah, we've got the same on the other side. And then I would hope, all being well, there we go. So I don't know whether you can see this, but basically they just screw into a hole, a blind hole, in the end. And I think they're meant to just contact the end by the looks of it. Fuel tank's next, and as I understand it, to get this out, this piece of plastic here, which forms the back of the rear mudguard, if you like, has to come out first. And it doesn't look as though there's any screws holding this in. There are 2 clips which are on the tank itself, holding it in, and then up at the top, I did wonder whether that was holding it in, but it's not. That's just holding the tank in. But what there is like a hole in the mudguard here, which just sits over. Just sits over that ridge, which was holding the grab rail on, and probably easy to show on that side, and the same on this side. So I think if we just pop both those off, I'm thinking that this will just lift up off there. There we go. Right, and that is the back end of our fuel tank. Right, fuel tank. The manual says to remove the fuel tap or petcock. I don't think I'm going to have to do that because I've got everything else off, so I think it'll come out with that on. Famous last words. There is a crossbar which goes across here, which I've taken off previously, and it said that had to come off. Obviously disconnect the fuel sender wires. Having had a look around this, there is literally just one screw holding this in, that one there. The rest of the fuel tank is held in by what looks like a bracket here at the front, and then it rests on this cross member here, and it's meant to be sat on 2 rubbers. That's one of them hanging down there, and that should be up in there by the looks of it. So it looks like it's that one bolt, and then with a bit of jiggery pokery, this should come out. This has got a fair bit of fuel still left in this, so it's going to be quite heavy, I think. And it was fresh fuel apparently not that long ago, when the guy tried to get it running who I bought it from, so I'm not going to risk it in another bike, but I will put it in my petrol lawnmower. Okay, let's get the camera set up and we'll get this bolt undone and we'll see what happens. Okay, so I have had to take the pet cot off, fuel tap, because it clearly wasn't going to miss this frame member. So I've now taken that off. So I'm hoping now I should be able to move this backwards. Oh, yeah. There's a fair bit of fuel in this, but it's not coming up from where I took the pet cock off, and I don't know whether that's because there's something else inside. Because obviously this bike is has a fuel pump. It's not gravity fed as such. So still can't because there's a lot of petrol in this. I can't quite work out why it's not coming out. But anyway, we'll worry about that afterwards. I'm going to be worrying about quite a lot on this bike, I think, afterwards. Right, so where are we? So I think now, if we lift this and it goes that way, okay, and now of course I'm stuck. Let's go back on there for a second. Oops. Definitely feel petrol. Oh, yeah, petrol coming out now. Yeah. It's coming out of the pet cot. It must have just been slightly lower than the level of the pet cot. So while I've been sipping my lovely cup of tea, I've been looking at where I've taken the pet cot off and wondering why it is there rather than underneath. But I suppose because this is under the frame, on a normal tank you would put it underneath and then you're at the lowest point where the petrol is, but they've had to put it on the side on this one so it's easy to get to. But looking at where it is, imagine that was like that level there leaves a lot of fuel in the bottom of there that can't get out that fuel tap. But so anyway, I've had a peer into the top with a torch, and how it works is there are two pipes come off this, one there and one there on the inside, metal pipes, and they're bent in such a way that they go down to here and go into a gauze filter by the looks of it, and that all appears to be part of the build-up of the tank inside. And of course, because this bike has a fuel pump, when the fuel pump is running, it's pulling the petrol from the lowest point where those pipes are, or into the gauze filter, through the pipes, and then up to these two here. And one of these will be obviously a normal on tap, and the other one will be a reserve. I did wonder why the tank is welded up the way it is, and it's because it's obviously made in two halves, so they can put all that internal bits and pieces in there before it then gets welded up, presumably. Anyway, just in case you wondered how your tank worked inside, there you go. Not left with very much now. We've got the two indicators on the front. Just unscrew from the headlight ears. Quite sure that wire's been routed properly. Maybe it has. Yeah, it has. I think it's just me. So I've been trying to drag through that bit rather than the hole at the bottom. And that's one off. And we've got the one over the other side, which I think is loose already. Yeah. So that just leaves us with front wheel, forks, and the triple T's, or whatever you want to call them. I think what I'm going to do, the wheels, the front wheel is held on just with these clamps underneath. Now one of those is missing on the other side already. I think what I'm going to do is take that one, undo that one, take that one off, and then I'm going to jack up the frame so it pivots on the centre stand using my trolley jack. I can't use my bike stand because the engine's sat on it, so I'll use that trolley jack. Should be fine. And then we can get the front wheel out, and then we can probably loosen up the forks and get the forks out. So I think that's the order of business. Right, we've gone with plan B because I put this side member on, started to jack it up on the trolley, and all that was happening was the centre stand was lifting off the ground instead, because there's a lot more weight on the front than there is on the back. Basic principles of leverage there. Should have realised that was going to happen. So plan B is ratchet strap round the frame, do the ratchet up, and that has lifted the front end up, and the wheel is now, or rather the forks have now cleared the wheel, so we now get the wheel out. So hopefully, if I've levered this up enough and move all this rubbish out of the way, our wheel should just lift clear. Okay, that brings us on to the forks. I don't actually know what these forks are off. They, I think they're off a Goldwing. The yoke appears to be correct, although it's been polished and it should be black. You can still see remnants of black on it. But these forks, I don't know if it's just the end caps or whether it's the forks themselves as well, but I think they must be off a later model. I need to double check on this, but I have got another set of forks, which the guy said he did find in the garage of the chap that he bought it from. That was his friend that passed away, and when he went round to his garage, he didn't want to poke around too much, but he did find the original forks. So I think he'd sourced these from somewhere else, and this is not right, because I don't know if I can show it somewhere. Yeah, around that side there appears to be a hole for a valve to go in there. So I suspect that these are meant to be air assisted, and they certainly weren't on the 1976 ones. So anyway, I'm going to take these caps off first, because I've got to get those off to be able to get the forks down. Then I'll undo the bolts of the forks, and then hopefully they'll slide out, and we'll worry about whether they're the right forks or not later on. I'm not really sure what's going to happen when I take these off. I don't know whether they're compressing the springs inside, or whether these come off and then there's something else in there. So I've got no reference, because they're not the right forks, and I haven't got a manual for whatever these forks are. Anyway, let's give it a go. What's the worst that can happen? Right. I'm going to keep my distance. This socket is slightly too big. Okay. Just wondering whether to put some kind of cloth or towel over this while I'm doing it, in case it goes shooting out. I think I might. Let's be safe and sorry. There's not a lot of pressure on this now as I'm doing it. It's come quite loose. Seems to be a rubber O-ring coming out with that. I think that's just loose now. Yeah, it is. Well, that was an anticlimax, but better safe than sorry. Okay, so we've got springs. So it was this, it's holding this spring in. And that is really not doing very much at all to hold that down in there. And no oil, well, very little oil in there. Certainly not as much as, certainly not what it should be. Okay, well that's got to come off anyway, like I say, to be able to get that out. So I should do the other one, and then we'll move on to getting the forks out of the yolks. So the forks legs, 4 legs are tied in with 2 screws, or rather an Allen bolt up this end and a bolt this end. Both on this side are loose anyway. So take those out. That one. Okay. Still tight, must be tight at the top. It's coming out slowly. So one of the other things you've got to remember when you put these back together is that you put the ears, the chrome ears for the on through the legs, otherwise you have to take it all back out to do it again. Okay. That's one fork leg. Move around the other side and do the other one. We've got this off. So it just pulls off. Oops. Okay, it's just a rubber seal with a metal backing on it that just sits in the top there by the looks of it, and a very similar one underneath as well. You can go in the box for things to be chromed. Right, that just leaves us with the top and bottom yoke, and there should be a large nut on the top here which is holding this on. I can't remember if I've already taken that off or it was just missing, but whatever, that should now just lift off, which it does. And I say, you can see that used to be painted black, and somebody's polished it. So anyway, that'll be going back to black. Just put that over to one side, and that just leaves the bottom yoke, which has, you may have a special tool to get this off. Okay, I'll do that with my hand then. That is my special tool, just right there, look. And one, I've got another anomaly with this bike as well. The ignition switch with this has got, I don't know what I've done with it now, has got its own lock. So it's got a park position on the key, on the ignition I should say, and the bar comes out, I think goes into that way, but there's nothing for it to go into, and it should go into something here, I think, on the frame. So I don't know whether I've got a more modern ignition barrel, because of course there is a lock here which I haven't got a key for, but there is a lock there which the early bikes used to have. But I've also had bikes where you've got that lock. In fact, my Yamaha SRX has got one. It's got one of those, but it's also got a proper ignition lock as well on the key. Now on this 76 model, I don't know whether it should have just had that, and the ignition barrel I've got is wrong or more modern, or maybe it should have a lock on it, and maybe it's got broken off at some point, and because it's been painted over, I can't really tell, but maybe there should have been something on here. There's also 3 threaded holes here, and there was nothing in those. Now again, I don't know what they're for. Maybe there's meant to be some kind of bracketry or something on there to hold cables, I would see the most likely. I'm not sure. I'll have to look that up in the parts book. But if anybody has built a 76, restored a 76, and they know what this is supposed to look like, then yeah, I'd like to know in the comments if you wouldn't mind, please. Right. So bikes this age generally had roller bearings in them. I'm guessing this one is going to be exactly the same. I'm going to get a Tupperware ready just to put those in. I won't be putting those back in. I'm going to be I should be putting taper rollers in this. Again, they're just generally better. They last longer. They need less maintenance. Well, probably don't need less maintenance, but you can get away with less maintenance. You can't see them, so you know it's one of those more modern takes on things that make sense to do when you're trying to restore a bike to factory, but you can't see the part. So, oh, right. Well, I take all that back because look at that. It's got needle roller bearings in it already. Well, I'm amazed. Absolutely amazed. Pleasantly surprised, if I'm honest. Very pleasantly surprised. I think what must have happened here then, bearing in mind the rest of the state of the bike, is when he got this, these were missing, or the rollers were missing, so he's had no choice but to put these in, because actually, looking at that in there, that's never been used. That is absolutely brand new. Okay, well that's good. So I can drift those, I'll be able to drift those out and reuse those. So yeah, that's an absolute bonus, absolute plus that is. Good. Right, I'm just having a look around the rest of the bike to see if there's anything else that I've missed, and the only thing I can see, apart from the centre stand, which is obviously still standing on, just put this out of the way, is the horn down there. So I'm going to whip that off, and then apart from drifting these out, which I might do a separate video on, I'll see how I go, but apart from doing those, this is ready to go off to be blasted now. I think I can feel around here where the little rivets are that should have held on the VIN plate, but that's not there, unfortunately. It's a shame, but I can see the frame number, although there can just about make that out on the headstock. So at the moment my intention with this is to have it 2-pack wet painted as opposed to stove enamelled. I think it gives a more original finish, and you don't get so many problems with the thickness of stove enamelling, which can cause problems with threads and you know, fitting parts back on. So jury's stood out, but at the moment I'm likely to go for 2-pack rather than 2-pack wet paint rather than stove enamelling. Anyway, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed the video, and you found it either entertaining, helpful, or both, or either that or just had a laugh at me trying to take things apart. The next video will probably be looking at some of the individual parts, splitting them all up into boxes to be chromed, plated, bits that I'm going to refurbish, that sort of thing. Yeah, we'll take it from there. So, hope you enjoyed the video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe down below, and I will see you in the next one.